Describe the current situation in Sudan and areas where WFP is able to distribute food and other essential services.
The situation in Sudan is absolutely catastrophic. We're seeing record levels of hunger in the current lean season when actually hunger should be less and there is more food availability. And what is more concerning is also the levels of hunger that we're seeing in the region as millions of people have been displaced, 8 million people displaced within Sudan and across borders, arriving in places like South Sudan and Chad, where resources are already scarce. The situation is extremely dire. However, WFP is on ground and since the conflict started, has provided food and nutrition assistance to 7 million people. But that is not enough in comparison to the numbers of people and the levels of hunger that we are seeing.
Leni, since the war began, we've seen people cross the borders to Chad, to South Sudan. What is the impact of this crisis for the neighboring countries such as South Sudan and Chad?
The impact is immense. We're seeing even from 1 week ago, 80,000 people have fled their homes, many crossing borders. It is now nearly 2 million people who have fled Sudan. That's an immense number of people for countries like Chad and South Sudan, who are already facing food security crisis of their own, to be able to support. The resources, as I mentioned before, are incredibly scarce. Families are arriving at the borders, having escaped the fighting to safety just to be met with hunger. And this is a regional crisis that is quickly spiraling out of control unless the conflict ends. And that is why we are warning that this could become and risks becoming the world's worst hunger crisis unless this conflict comes to an end and guns get put down.
Now, you describe a very difficult situation there. How is WFP and other humanitarian aid organizations able to get these essential services across? What kind of challenges are you facing?
Our biggest challenge is humanitarian access. It was mentioned before in the report now that cross-border operations from Chad into Sudan or from South Sudan would be allowed. We actually had a functioning cross-border operation from Chad into West Darfur, into Janina, which is one of the most food insecure and hungriest areas in Sudan. Unfortunately, authorities had revoked access a few weeks ago, so that cross-border operation stopped. Now they have reinstated our allowances to be able to do so, but from different border crossing points. So this is just an example of the difficulties that we face with authorities, with clearances, whether it is the SAF or the RSF. And the most difficult thing is that fighting is still ongoing, especially in conflict hotspots like Khartoum, the capital, parts of the Darfur region now are in and around Al Fasher, the capital of North Darfur. And it is nearly impossible for us to be able to transport truckloads of food assistance that is required when there's airstrikes, shelling, bombing ongoing.